What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast here with another video. Today we're talking about the big news that happened yesterday, literally right after I finished recording my video with Ridley, Rodgers, and Russ getting traded to the Broncos. There was another big trade in the NFL world with the Washington Commanders trading for Carson Wentz, which I thought was a very interesting move. So let's break it down from Wentz's last season, or even just Wentz's career in general. So Wentz started in Philadelphia in 18, had his best season, MVP type season, tears his ACL against the Rams in week 15 or something like that. Probably would have won MVP had he not gotten hurt. And then the Eagles make a run in the playoffs. They beat Atlanta, they beat the Vikings, and then they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Become champions. Nick Foles becomes Super Bowl MVP. Big moment for Philadelphia Eagles fans. First championship ever, massive win. Then next following season, they just barely sneak into the playoffs. I think they beat Dallas in week 17 in order to win the division to get into the playoffs. And they play Seattle, and then Carson Wentz gets hurt on a cheap shot by Jadeveon Clowney. DK Metcalf went off in that game. However, the Eagles still win. They go on to play the Saints in the divisional round. And if it weren't for bum Alshon Jeffrey, they would have won that game. I mean, just right through his hands and his pick. And Nick Foles played pretty good in that game. And then 2020 was an absolute disaster for Wentz. Or I guess that would have been 2018. So then 2019 was a disaster. 2020 was even more of a disaster, where Wentz got benched for Jalen Hurts for the last 4 games of the season. And then he gets traded to Philadelphia for a first-round pick, and then I think it was another pick that could become a second or a third, depending on Wentz's playing time. Or it was a second that could become a first, based on Wentz's playing time. So then, and the Eagles ate the most dead cap ever. I think it was like 20-something million. And then a year later, yesterday, the Colts trade him to Washington because they did not want a repeat of what happened at the end of last season. They did not want ever again to happen where they are that close to the playoffs. They just need to beat Jacksonville, the worst team in the league, by a significant amount. And they couldn't do it. They could not do it. They did not beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I don't think Wentz was the only person at fault. Jonathan Taylor didn't have a good game. Michael Pittman Jr. didn't have a good game. The defense did not have a good game at all. Trevor Lawrence really played really well in that game. Marvin Jones was getting open. But it's just a travesty to see that from the Colts. So the details of the trade were Washington gets Wentz, the Colts' second-round pick this year, and a 7th this year as well. That was just added this morning by Adam Schefter. The Colts get they swap second, so they get Washington second. I think they move up 5 spots in the draft with that. A 3rd this year as well, and they get a 3rd next year that could turn into a 2nd based off of Wentz's playing time. So I'll talk about this from Indianapolis' perspective first, and then Washington's. Indianapolis, this is a W trade. The fact that they got this much for Carson Wentz is absurd, in my opinion. I would have traded like 1/3 maybe for Carson Wentz. And this is a W trade for the Colts because and on top of that, I think Washington is paying $28 million for Carson Wentz this season. Like, they're taking his whole salary, which I don't know if the Colts drugged the Commanders GM or what, but I don't understand why the Commanders are paying his full salary this year. That is stupid. But back to the Colts. So I think the Colts, they were like, hey, we don't want this to ever happen again. We need to get off this deal. And from that perspective, I understand, but there's not really much else you can do to get a better quarterback. I mean, I'm thinking of guys off the top of my head. Deshaun will not get traded in the division. There's 0% chance that happens. Other guys available, like Carr could be available, but I don't think that they would trade Derek Carr to the Colts because interconference. I mean, possibly if the Colts gave up a lot, but they don't really have the assets to because they don't even have their first round pick this year because it's in Philadelphia for the trade that they originally traded for Wentz. Jimmy G is probably the most obvious option in my opinion because he's more of that game manager type where he's not really going to, well, he can lose you games. Obviously, he's shown that. But Jimmy G, I think, gets a little bit too much hate in my opinion. Yes, he's not. I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I don't think he's got a lead upside, but I think he's a top 20 to 22 quarterback in the league. And, I think last year when it mattered for San Francisco, he won them games. Week 18 against the Rams, he won them that game. Wild card game, won them that. Against the Packers on the road in the snow, and he did not have his best game. The first half was horrendous. After that, though, I mean, he did not. No, his stat line was terrible. I mean, you look at it, you look at the box score, and you're like, he played terrible, but he actually hit some huge third down throws on the final drive to put them in field goal range. And of course, Debo with that massive run put them in field goal range and they won the game. And then he played relatively well against the Rams in the NFC Championship game. They just lost. I think Jimmy G has two defining weaknesses where he misses linebackers over the middle. He doesn't see underneath defenders over the middle of the field at all. He misses he will throw you're what are you doing when he throws that ball? Because he throws it right to a linebacker because he doesn't see him. And then his other one is he will spray throws. I mean, if he gets panicked in the pocket, he will throw the ball and sail it by 10 yards or throw it 3 yards behind him or 3 yards in front of him or at his feet. His accuracy sometimes can be awful. But I think that's probably where the Colts are going to go for. And I think Jimmy G's value is probably a 2, so they'll probably use that Washington 2 that they got and send it to San Francisco in order to get Jimmy G. I mean, I just don't know who you can get other than that. I mean, if you look at free agency, I think Jameis stays in New Orleans personally, but Jameis is an option. Mariota's an option because I think he's a free agent, and I don't think Vegas will retain him. And then Mitch Trubisky's a option, but a lot of people have him basically going to the Giants to compete with Daniel Jones for a starting job. So I don't really know what you're going to do as the Colts in order to get a guy that you can actually win games with. I mean, you have Sam Ehlinger there, who's like Tim Tebow pretty much. So we'll kind of see what they do. And then from Washington's perspective, I understand that they needed to upgrade at quarterback. And honestly, the guys in this draft aren't really day one starter ready, but you do have Heineke and Fitzpatrick, who are both, I think, in my opinion, starting caliber quarterbacks in this league, which means they're top 32. And everybody last year, I think what was expected was that Washington was going to have this elite defense, and then they just needed Heineke to game manage, score them 24 points a game and win. And it was the opposite. It was this defense is awful, and Heineke had to win them games. And so you look at Heineke's stats and you're like, oh, he threw 15 interceptions last year. It's yes, because he had to make plays for this team to win games. That Atlanta game with the McKissick touchdown that he dives in to win the game, that was insane from Taylor Heineke to bring them back to win that game. I mean, I know Atlanta's defense is dog, but that was incredible. Heineke last year, I don't think got enough credit he deserved because that Washington team, their defense was so underwhelming. And there's games that they probably should have won. Remember week 1 when they played the Chargers, right? I think they were down. I think they lost that game by 4 points. It was 20-16, I think. And the Chargers got the ball back with 6:30 left. And they drove down the field, had 4 third down conversions, and won the game because they ran the clock out. I mean, this defense could not get a stop to save its life. I don't think Heineke is going to be ever like a top 20 quarterback. But like the disrespect they're giving Heineke right now is like absurd. And I think Wentz is better than Heineke, don't get me wrong. But for them to give up this amount, this much assets for Wentz and pay him $28 million this season, like, I don't know if that's the right move. It depends on which version of Wentz you're getting. And honestly, in all honesty, Wentz did not have that bad of a season last year, except for that last game. He had like the worst time of his last game. But the dude is turnover-worthy prone. Like, I know he only had 7 picks, but I think he had like 20 turnover-worthy plays. In the San Francisco game alone, in the rain, there was like 4 drop picks in that game. Go back and watch the film. I don't know if like this is either going to be a boom or bust for Washington. And my initial reaction is I wouldn't have given up that much. I would have given up maybe half, and I wouldn't have paid his full $28 million salary this season because, and I feel like this is a situation where Wentz could succeed because they have a decent offensive line. In my opinion, it's probably like top 12. They have good weapons. I think Curtis Samuel needs to stay healthy. Logan Thomas is going to come back healthy, and I like Logan Thomas is kind of like that chain mover. Terry McLaurin's a stud. Antonio Gibson was banged up last year. I wonder if they bring back J.D. McKissick because I really liked him as a piece along with Antonio Gibson. And then their defense just needs to improve. Like they have the pieces, they have the talent. They just need to like play way better than they did. But I think NFC East is probably like. I mean, the Eagles made the playoffs last year, so we'll see. I don't think anybody's going to beat Dallas in that division right now, but we'll see how free agency kind of works and stuff like that. But that is my thoughts on the Wentz trade. Tomorrow, I will have a video out on my 5 winners and losers of the Combine from days 2, 3, and 4 combined. Maybe I'll do 6, so I'll do 2 from each day. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the video. And stay tuned next week. Also, I'm going to have my mock draft 2.0 coming out. Really excited to do that. A lot of things have changed since the last one. So I'm really excited for that. But thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you have a great day and peace.